Hi, and welcome to this webinar about submitting an event proposal for the AWP Conference and Book Fair in 2021. My name is Colleen Cable, and I'm the Associate Director of Conferences at AWP. And I started at AWP as the Events Coordinator in 2016, so I've seen a few years of this proposal process and have read a lot of proposals. And year-round, I oversee conference logistics and contracts. And with us today is Aubrey Campilla and January Gill O'Neill. I'd like to introduce January, one of the vice chairs of the AWP Board of Directors and is the chair of the AWP Conference Committee. January has published books of poetry, including Rewilding, Misery Islands, and Underlife with Cavan Carey Press. She's associate professor at Salem State University, in addition to being the 2019-2020 John and Renee Grisham Writer-in-Residence at the University of Mississippi, Oxford. And January has sat on several years of the conference committee, which, as we'll explain, evaluates proposals. And I think Aubrey's going to introduce herself.
Yes, hello, my name is Aubrey Campilla. I'm the conference events coordinator at AWP. I joined AWP almost 2 years ago after graduating from Gettysburg College with my BA in English and Writing. I'm very excited to be involved in my third conference now.
Great. And since we are kind of premiering this on YouTube, if you'd like to input any questions into the chat, we'll be live with you there so we can answer any questions you have. I think it's on the right side of your screen. And also, always, if you have any questions about events or the conference, please feel free to reach out to Aubrey at events@awpwriter.org. All right, so before we get started with specifics of proposals and best practices, I just wanted to give you a bit of background on AWP and the conference. AWP was founded in 1967 by 15 writers representing 13 creative writing programs. Today, we support over 500 colleges and universities, 130 writers, conferences, and centers, and thousands of individual writers as members. The conference started out in 1973 and featured just 6 events and 16 presenters. And over the years, the conference has grown steadily, and now we have between 10 to 15,000 attendees, over 500 events with around 2,000 presenters, and a book fair of between 500 and 800 small presses, literary magazines, publishers, and universities. And we get these 500 events from this proposal process. Normally, we receive between 1,200 and 1,700 proposals each year. And due to space and logistical limitations, we are only able to accept around 450 to 500 events. So we have an average acceptance rate of around 30%. So normally, it's a very competitive process. But this year, we're really excited to offer this opportunity only to people who've never submitted before. So we're hoping that this gives a lot of new voices more opportunity to participate in the conference. So I think with that, Aubrey's going to talk a little bit about sort of the nuts and bolts of the proposal process and sort of what the general expectations and outline of that is.
Yes, so if you're wondering about the proposal submission process, kind of exactly how to do it on the website, which button to click, and where to go to submit it, there's actually another resource for that we've created. And I think we'll be able to drop the link to that video if that's what you're looking for. This webinar is kind of going to be focused on best practices and tips and tricks for the proposal submission process and the basic rundown of what it is and what you should be thinking about if you would like to participate. So the first thing that I'm going to go through is the components of a proposal. Obviously, the first part of that is the title and description for the proposal. That's the most important part because it's what other attendees will see and it's how you market your event to the people that you're trying to reach. If you're looking for some ideas or what people have done in the past, on the AWP website, we have the conference archives where you can see all the past events from the past several years. I'm not sure how far back it goes, but you can check out what other people have done, what creative things they've called their events, how they've marketed their different topics to their audience. So that's the first part. The second part is the type of event that you're going to be proposing. So essentially which category in all the different AWP events it will go into. We have 18 different categories and they're all pretty vague. They're like fiction, craft, and criticism, or a poetry reading, very vague things for many proposals to fit into, but the reason that they're important is because the way that we rank the different proposals against each other is within each category. So we don't compare a fiction, craft, and criticism proposal to a tribute proposal, for example. And I believe January will talk a little bit more about that kind of process a little bit later in the webinar. But when you're submitting your proposal, you want to make sure that you are assigning the correct category to your proposal so that it can be ranked correctly by the conference subcommittee. And if it's put into a category that it doesn't make sense in, it typically is ranked lower. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, is making sure that your event is in the correct category. The next part of the proposal is the statement of merit. So that is something that other conference attendees will not be able to see. It's something that just the conference subcommittee who's looking at your proposal will see. And it's basically your chance to explain why your event is important, why it matters to the greater literary community, why it should be put on for the conference for other people to see. Again, that won't be seen by anyone else, but it's just another chance for you to explain what's so great about the event that you're proposing and why it would be a really great thing for other people to see and think about. And then the next big chunk of the proposal is who's going to be on your event. So there's 3 different roles within an event proposal that will need to be assigned. The first one is probably what you will be doing if you're watching this webinar. That's the event organizer. They're the person who usually conceptualizes the idea, invites other participants, submits all the paperwork with AWP, and leading up to the conference is the liaison to AWP with all the logistics and planning that go into holding a conference event. The event organizer can be a participant on the event, but they're not necessarily a participant. You don't have to if you're just organizing the event, inviting the participants, helping them get everything ready to go. But if you would like to be on the event, then you can include yourself either as one of the other 2 roles, which is the event moderator or a regular event participant. So an event moderator is the person who kind of does what Colleen is doing for us here, kind of runs the conversation, keeps everyone on track. They will host the Q&A at the end of every event, so the audience has a chance to ask questions, and that person kind of runs that process. The moderator is considered an event participant and should adhere to AWP's participation policy, which states that any person can be on a maximum of 2 accepted conference events. So if you're a moderator on one and a participant on another, that's your 2 events right there. And then the other thing that you can be, which is what most people are, is just a regular event participant. So a panelist who's participating, bringing your own perspective to the panel. And so with those participants, there's kind of a couple of parts in the proposal that they should be involved in particularly. One is the short biographies. So each participant should submit a short biography through the proposal submission process, which will be viewed by the subcommittee so that they can see who's going to be talking about the topic that you propose and what experience and insights they might bring to that topic. And then the other important thing that your presenters will need to do for your proposal is link to the proposal so that we know that they are confirming their participation on their event, that they understand our various policies, which are outlined on the website and will be shared with you as we go through the proposal system process, and that everyone has given their permission to present and knows what's going on and has submitted all of the relevant paperwork. I think that's all the major parts. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's the basic outline of what is expected in a proposal. Mm-hmm. So now we can talk about sort of when you hit the submit button on the proposal, sort of how events are selected, and we can talk a little bit about the conference subcommittee. So January, if you want to take it.
Okay, thanks, Colleen. Thanks, Aubrey. Well, what can I say? Let's see. The events are selected by a conference subcommittee, which is made up of individuals who represent AWP's general membership. It's balanced in literary genre, regional representation, and diversity. 2 of the subcommittee are AWP board members to provide some continuity year after year. Each member of this conference subcommittee will review around 300 proposals, and each proposal is reviewed by between 3 and 4 subcommittee members on the basis of artistic merit, that's about 45%, importance to membership, 25%, diversity, 20%, and integrity of the proposal or completeness. And as someone who has been involved since 2012, before I was on the board, I take this role very seriously. So I look forward to all the proposals that'll be coming in. And for the new people who will get a chance to have their ideas heard.
Yeah, and it's also, just to kind of bring this back up again, like Aubrey mentioned before, it's really important to be really careful about the category that you're submitting in. Because, again, if you propose a poetry event in a fiction category, the subcommittee can't really rank that super highly because it doesn't really fit with what they're looking for in that category. And they're also, evaluated compared to other events in that category. So, if you got accepted and you didn't think that your category was like a reading category, once it's accepted, we can't really change category, because then it would have to go back to the subcommittee and all of the proposals within that category would need to be re-ranked because it is like relational. So just be super careful about your category so the subcommittee can kind of just review within each category. And then once you submit your proposal, it gets evaluated by the subcommittee. The subcommittee will give AWP staff all of their scores and rankings, and then we compile those to get the highest ranked proposals in each category. And depending on space limitations and how many proposals we receive, we can take a percentage of each category. And just to let you know, the subcommittee is still in development right now, but will be posted on the website very soon. So that's sort of a little bit of information about how events are accepted. So Aubrey can kind of talk a little bit more about the process for what you do once your event is accepted. And this will probably be around September, October this year.
Yep. So once we get all of the proposals back from the subcommittee and determine how many in each category that we can take for the upcoming conference, the conference staff will then email all of the event proposers who have submitted a proposal with whether or not their event has been accepted or not accepted for the upcoming conference. So everyone will hear, regardless of whether your event is accepted or not, you will be notified of what happened. If your event is accepted, we'll then go forward with confirming your event. Usually a couple months have passed since you submitted your proposal. So confirm with all of your participants that they still are on board with participating on this event. You can make any small changes that are necessary, small tweaks to your description, or any other little changes that might have come about in the couple months where it was getting evaluated. You and your panelists will all confirm your participation with AWP so that we know that you definitely are looking to do it looking to do it in the upcoming months. All the different steps that go into preparing for the event, continuing to liaise with AWP. And one important part of that is submitting an event outline. So the event outlines are fairly new for AWP, but they're really important for a few different reasons. So the event outline that you'll create will basically be a rundown of how you expect your event to go. It can start with what you might say as, what the moderator might say as introductory remarks, what order your presenters are going to speak in and on what topics, what questions your moderator might be asking your presenters. It doesn't have to be a word-for-word transcript of what your event is going to be. We love a little bit of literary improvisation and for organic conversation to happen during the events. But the reason that it's so important to have a pretty good detailed outline of how your event is going to go is for accessibility reasons. Some attendees like to view the information for an event beforehand, whether it's deciding which events they would like to go to on site, if they have limited steps, for example, to get from room to room and want to know what the event is going to be like before they set off to get there.
Yeah, so the outlines are really important to give to ASL and CART interpreters so that they can prepare in advance, because it's really hard for interpreters to, on the fly, do a lot of technical signing or captioning if they're not familiar with, for example, like literary terms or poetic terms or something that might be discussed. So it's really great for them to prepare that material in advance so that they can do the best job on site for their client.
Yes, thank you. And so the event outlines are really important for a variety of those reasons, and also just because it's a little bit more information for any attendee who may be curious about what your event is going to be. There's often a lot of choices for what events people want to attend or which ones that they're most interested in, and so providing that additional information can help people make their choices. And so if your event is accepted, you'll be asked to put together your event outline pretty soon after it's accepted. And you'll be able to upload it in the event management page of your AWP account so that attendees can go onto the conference schedule on our website and download that information as they please.
And I also want to add, it's a great tool to help presenters prepare because you don't want to show up at your event and not having thought about some of the things that you want to say and sort of doing it off the cuff or kind of doing it live. We definitely want events where you're in conversation with your panelists for a long time before the event so that you can have the best possible conversation. And so this outline is a helpful sort of exercise in preparing what you want to say, points you make sure you want to make, and that kind of detailed thinking about your conversation. So I think that's sort of the basic outline of sort of the process of submitting an event. And so now we kind of want to give you some of our best practices that we've sort of been noticing over the years of which kinds of panels are usually accepted, what kind of common features do they have, to give you kind of the best chance at being accepted onto the schedule for 2021. And one of the most important pieces of advice, and a lot of our points kind of boiled down to this, is that the subcommittee is really looking for conversations and proposals that have the widest breadth of perspective. So we want these proposals to be sort of as inclusive as possible, to represent a lot of different people, a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different backgrounds and experience. So you have to kind of ask yourself, like, how can I broaden and complicate this topic? What perspectives are not being addressed with the people I'm sort of thinking about right away? So, for example, we've seen before where an event is submitted and we look at the participants and all the participants have like the same .edu email address, which kind of tips off the subcommittee of like, oh, they're all working at the same institution. So, kind of thinking about what other people can I include that are going to represent not only academic thoughts, but perhaps non-academics, maybe people who work in organizations or multimedia, like some kind of different perspective, so that it's not all the same people from the same organization. And just an example I kind of have is, say you wanted to submit a proposal about Emily Dickinson and her life and work. You might want to think about a teacher who uses her poetry in a university classroom, maybe an MFA student who's drawing from her work in her thesis, and maybe a more established writer who credits Emily Dickinson as an influence. And then, try to think a little bit outside of the box of like, there's all these like film adaptations of her recently, to kind of like talk about why that might be, and maybe include someone who's like doing kind of a non-written word sort of interpretation of her. So just kind of think about broadening that conversation as much as you possibly can.
And kind of on that same vein, another thing that people really like to do, which we completely welcome, is highlighting a certain small press, institution, center, or program and the work that that one specific organization is doing, which is awesome. But another great thing to think about when putting your proposal together and thinking about what the subcommittee is looking for is kind of the same thing that Colleen was saying. How can what that organization is doing, how can that conversation be broadened across regions or genres or anything similar? So if there's another organization doing something similar somewhere else, or doing something similar but maybe with different restrictions, it's always great to get the different perspectives, even when you're focusing on the great work of one specific organization, to broaden that conversation so that it appeals to as many people as possible.
And this will be the last time I tell you to be very careful about the category. It's kind of one of the things that we see people sort of misunderstanding a little bit. So we definitely want to kind of head that off. And if you are sort of unsure about what category your event belongs in, please reach out to us. We're very happy to help you sort of think through some of the options because, you know, we do have so many categories that sometimes it is confusing to like know which one fits. So if you need help or have questions about categories specifically, definitely reach out to events@awpwriter.org. And that goes right to Aubrey. So we're happy to help you.
And another thing to think about while we're talking about broadening and reaching out to different perspectives is that you shouldn't feel confined to only invite people to participate on your proposal if you know them personally or are close. We know of a lot of great event organizers who think of the event that they want to see, what they would want to watch as an audience member, and then just reach out to the people who they think that would be great on it, even if they haven't met in person or don't have a close working relationship yet. A lot of writers really enjoy the opportunity to present at our conference. It's a great opportunity, and probably a lot of them would be flattered if you reached out to include them in your proposal. So don't be afraid to reach out to someone that you admire via social media or talk to other people you know that have done event proposals before. They can be a great resource as well for who might want to participate on your proposal and who might be a great fit.
And AWP really encourages all kinds of people to submit, no matter what their experience has been in sort of publishing. I feel like there is a conception that if you haven't published, you can't sort of like talk on panels about certain topics. And that's really not true. We really love to support writers in every phase of their writing career and sort of process. So we love to see students participating. We love to see undergrad and graduate students submitting proposals. So no matter where you are in your journey, we want to have you at the conference and have your voice. And I think that's sort of most of our advice. We really encourage you to ask us for help. We are so happy to do it, and we are excited that this proposal process is only for first-timers this year because we really get to dedicate our time to supporting you. So please reach out to us for help, and we're happy to do it.
One more tip that I do have too is that like Colleen is saying, we'd love to help. We want to help in any way that we can, but make sure that you are submitting with enough time. Some people leave it right up until the last day of the deadline, realize that they have a question or that they're having trouble with our system and want to reach out for help, but it's kind of at the 11th hour. So definitely, if you're interested in this process, take a look at it well before the deadline, think about what you want to do. And if any questions do come up, it's great if you give us the time to help you because we would love to do so.
All right, so all of the information that we've covered today is on our website, and we are still making the decision between two versions of the conference experience in March of 2021, either a fully virtual conference or a hybrid meeting where it'll be a smaller in-person meeting with sort of a robust virtual component. So no matter what you would do, you will have the option to host your event virtually, regardless of the format that it takes. If you have any questions about that, please let us know. We're hoping to make the decision pretty soon. And in the meantime, we have our presenter guidelines and proposal guidelines posted from last year. Until we make the decision about what kind of meeting it's going to be, we don't want to post specific guidelines because those might change depending on the format. But we do have last year's, so that's really good to review and download from the website. And we'll answer a lot of questions you may have. But otherwise, please reach out to us. We're excited to talk to you. And thank you, everybody, for coming today.